Hi, Donald Wayne Strout again, sharing things that I have learned. This video is about how to achieve high G-force launching using bite point settings to achieve the optimum launch and start. It's an interesting topic and it's not that complicated, although things have changed over time. Originally, in order to achieve this type of launch, you used to have to use a complicated setup with two paddles or two clutch settings. Now you can set it up basically with one clutch pedal or one clutch paddle and a setting in iRacing. So we'll go through that on the initial stages of how to set all of that up, and then we'll show you the intensive testing that I did for several formula cars, and you can see the results in a table that I'll share at the end of the video. Before I get into the details, I'd like to share some commentary. Essentially, I'm an old guy at 75 years old, and I was kind of figuring that the reason why guys were beating me to turn one on a standing start was that they were younger and had faster reaction times and better coordination of the clutch pedal. But upon doing some research, I found out that that's just not the case. That iRacing provides all the tools to provide a absolutely high G-force start that nobody can necessarily beat. If you practice it and execute with all of the necessary optimum inputs, you'll achieve a first-class performance and nobody should beat you to the first corner. Go to the settings page and scroll down to the section that is labeled clutch and look at the slider for bite point, and you can move that white dot to the left or right to create the setting that you wish. The numbers will vary somewhere between 20 and 60%, depending on the car. Then you have to map a button someplace on your wheel or your button box, which will launch the launch assist, which essentially will set up the bite point. So that's the only settings that you need to have here, but each one has to be set up individually for each car, and you can check the box in the left corner to set up the settings that will apply only to this car, and they'll always come back whenever you come back to the car, so you won't have to redo the settings each time you race. The best way to determine the optimum settings and to practice is to find a track. I used Fuji in this case, where you can have about 1,800 feet of travel on a straight and level track surface. Essentially, I picked a certain track temperature, but you need to recognize that these settings may need to change depending on track temperature. Higher track temperatures may require higher bite point settings. But essentially, we picked 1,800 feet because 1,800 feet is about the distance from most starting grid positions to the first corner where the brakes need to be applied. So it gives you an indication of what it will be like as you approach turn one. Set up your active reset points to start at the beginning of the 1,800-foot section and to end at the end of the 1,800-foot section. That will give you a comparison segment time that you can use to check your performance using different techniques. So here we are testing the Super Formula Light. The first run is what I call a simple start, which is just basically push the pedal and go when the light turns green. The second one is holding the brake at 85% or full brake, full beans, and release the brake when the green light comes out. In most cases, that will be faster than the simple start, but here's the best, which is using the bite point. Engage the regular clutch, and then also engage the secondary button. Release the button, then release the clutch. Shift normally. The shift from first to second is critical. Wow, a big difference on the Super Formula Light. Wow. Here's the same testing with the Formula Ford 1600. Same procedure. Holding full brake on the Formula Ford doesn't seem to work very well. The best way to do a Formula Ford, other than the bite point, is to just basically full beans and dump the clutch. Here's the bite point test. It's faster. Okay, now let's look at the data. You'll notice with almost every car, the fastest starting procedure is to use the optimum bite point. A really skilled and well-coordinated driver may be able to use the manual clutch release and use a best effort, but his results will certainly be inconsistent and will not be able to outperform the optimum bite point every time. But on some occasions, they may be able to actually do better than the optimum bite point. A perfectly executed manual clutch release with an expert driver can accomplish some very good results. But if you're looking for probabilities and percentages, the very best performance is always from the optimum bite point in every car. The second best is usually the full throttle, hold the brake, and go green. The exception for that is the Spec Racer Ford and the Formula Ford, where basically the manual clutch release best effort is usually better than the hold the brake for whatever reason. This is a complicated technology where there are many factors that determine the optimum launch performance. Essentially, you have the coefficient of friction of the tires, you have the weight transfer from the front to the rear when the clutch is released, you have the flywheel effect of the drivetrain, the engine flywheel, and all the other components that have to be accelerated when the clutch is released. In the drivetrain, essentially, the flywheel and the engine has some ability to overcome that inertia in the drivetrain. So all of those things are very, very complicated. So the best way to determine the best performance is to test and to experiment. Now obviously the shifting technique and the shifting points can vary from time to time, so you have to be very careful that you pick the ideal shift points and you shift consistently. And the shift from first to second is particularly critical. The essence of what you're trying to do with a clutch is you're trying to keep the engine at maximum torque and to transmit as much of that maximum torque to the tires without exceeding the tire's ability to maintain traction. Racing slicks have a higher coefficient of friction, so they can basically launch better than tires like are used on the Formula Ford and on the Formula V that are sort of almost semi-racing tires, more like street tires. So the G-force is probably closer to 1.5 on the racing slicks and around probably 1 on the semi-racing slicks on the Formula Ford and the Formula V. Even the launch assist bite point procedure provides a significant advantage and is somewhat automated and mechanical in its predictability. It still requires practice and a good technique. The shifting points, the timing of the release of the first clutch, not the bite point clutch, but the first clutch, not the button, but the actual clutch pedal, will result in a difference in the lap time. So you need to keep practicing and testing to determine the ideal release of the main clutch and the ideal shift point from first to second. Finally, don't forget, you have to go as soon as the green light turns on. So the reaction time between the red light and the green light is very important. And there is some difference between one person and another's reaction time. So don't be disappointed if there's someone that is always a little quicker than you are, because their reaction to the changing the lights may give them some advantage. There's no way to anticipate the green. It's a random time difference between the red and the green, so there's no way to anticipate it. You got to just wait until you see the green and go. And of course, particularly in the Formula V, don't miss that shift from first to second. You got to make sure you pull the clutch before you move your shifting lever, or you'll miss the shift. I do it often, and it's very annoying, so it takes a lot of practice. Practice makes perfect in all of these cases, in all of these situations. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and have a great day.